Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of More or Less. Today, we are joined by the wonderfully talented, beautiful Mary Lambert. Mary, welcome to the show.
Yay!
Yay! Applause, applause. Can you tell us who you are in your own words?
Yeah. I am a queer, fat singer-songwriter, poet, composer, actor. I don't know. It's like all the slashes. But I'm an artist, and I love talking about feelings and things that are uncomfortable because I think shame hides in the things that are uncomfortable. And I feel like I've been on a crusade my whole life to like unashame myself and to like invite other people to do the same because like the feeling of liberation on the other side is so freeing and expansive that I want that for everybody.
Mary is giving multi-hyphenate Brene Brown energy right now, and I love it. One word to describe how you're really feeling in this moment.
Jubilant.
I like that word.
Thanks. I just thought of it
I love that it rolled off the tongue and everything.
because I really feel it.
I love it. Okay, one thing you need more of and one thing you need less of.
I think I need more self-compassion and less self-criticism, I think.
More self-compassion, less self-criticism.
Yeah, I mean, they come in the same vein, I think.
Are you finding that the voice in your head is louder for criticism?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been fighting it for my whole life. And I used to think that if I like changed my relationship to my body, which has been like my big thing for the last 10 years, then that would heal the parts of my inner I don't know, my inner discontentedness about whether I'm enough or not. And it actually like it does help, but it hasn't healed what needs to heal. Um in the same way that I think like when people want to lose weight or they think that once they achieve this thing they're gonna feel better. I think it's been the same for me of like once I've gotten to a peaceful place with myself and my body, there's still all of this trauma. There's still all of this stuff to work through that actually has nothing to do with my external like aesthetic physical characteristics.
Right. I think we fixate or we identify one thing that we think is a problem with
Mhm.
ourselves. And then we just crack the surface of it, or we think we've checked the box on it. And yet you've uncovered like the iceberg mentality. Underneath that iceberg is a ton of whether it's baggage, experiences, trauma, things that you haven't worked through.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to start at the surface. I think you do have to identify and then you can work your way down.
Totally.
Has that been your experience?
Yeah, well, and I think you have to like put a lens on like, okay, well, what are all the conditions that led me to feeling this way? And when you think about like cultural pressure or you think about, beauty ideals and I go back, being bipolar, being queer in the church and being fat, like these are all ways that I felt that I had failed in society. And so I had to get to a place where I was good with myself, and I am good with myself. But there's still that feeling, especially I think in the entertainment industry, where it's like you're not doing enough, or all of the achievement shame or, productivity shame, like
Yep.
all of that.
Have you been able to, because all of those experiences have obviously shaped you, being in the church, being queer, struggling with your body image, have you been able to maybe take one or two of those and shift it into a superpower?
All of them.
All of
Yeah,
them.
all of
That's
them for
amazing.
sure. But that's the thing is like even though these different aspects and characteristics of myself, like I have come to a more peaceful place with it, there's still something internally that's like you're still not enough. And it's I think identifying that that's a soul. I think there's a soul fracture that I need to like go into. And I think there's some really deep stuff. And I talk really explicitly about like, the trauma I've experienced. I was like, I was sexually abused by my dad growing up and had a lot of, like, really difficult things that I went through, and I think, you get to a place where you've talked about it so much in therapy, or you're comfortable talking about it, but it's almost like it doesn't really get into, like, the nitty-gritty of it
Yeah.
or, like, healing that, and I just discovered parts work, so I'm like, "Ooh, that's where I need to go," so
Yeah, I we were chatting about this not too long ago with a friend and an artist. He's very vocal about mental health, and we were talking a bit about how, him and I have both done talk therapy for years and years and years, but there is something to be said about, okay, well, what about my mind body connection?
Mm,
What about, how I show up in the world and my inner train of thought that
yeah.
isn't from just talking or being an advocate or holding space for other people? Like, what about the deep stuff?
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's where I think there's a ton of different modalities out there that people have
Yes.
tried, EMDR and
I
just
love that.
different ways to integrate deeper healing that goes beyond talking about it. Because I think there's something to be said about somatic healing, your physical body, because it manifests that all body keeps the score, as we like to say,
Mhm.
as the book goes.
Yeah.
But I love that we're getting right into it. I
Totally.
I love that we're just, like, diving right in.
My
Um,
jam.
yeah, I mean, you're a very easy person to talk to, and I think you have such a wonderful, inspiring story that I'm excited for listeners to hear today.
Thanks, Jess.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited you're in this chair. This is also, I think you and I share a lot of commonalities, and we can get into it, particularly around like our teen years. And this year, or this week, actually marks my 10 years of recovery. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
Wow.
And I think back on that 17-year-old girl, and that's why I also think this conversation is so important to me, at least today, because your music and Same Love has been a soundtrack for so many people. Um, so I just appreciate you being here, all to say.
Thank you.
So let's start with Same Love,
Okay.
maybe. Let's
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah.
13 years, 14 years? How many
Yeah.
years has it been?
Let's see. We recorded it in 2011. It came out in 2012. So it's been 13 years, almost 14.
Given that was such a cultural moment
Yeah.
for folks that are maybe young or who weren't, we have a lot of young listeners. If you weren't there, it was a cultural moment. um, it was a big freaking deal. That song saved people's lives. It
Mhm.
encouraged people to come out, to have difficult conversations. Uh, God, it was such a powerful anthem. And I was listening to it last night or this morning too. And it's incredible the lyricism behind it, both for you and him, and how much it still applies today.
Yeah.
You think about I'm using quotations, progress we've made, and yet we still have such a long way to go, it feels.
Yeah.
I'll first ask you, given that there's been several years away from it, have you been able to reflect and process that time period in your life?
Yeah, I think when it was happening, it was such a whirlwind,
Yeah.
and it was like I was really trying to stay grounded and really trying to hold on to it, but I was like 22, 23 when it
Very
happened,
young.
and I had not released any formal music. Like, I had just graduated college. I was like bartending, working like 3 jobs, and then all of a sudden I'm like singing at the Grammys with Madonna. And so for me it was like a career whirlwind, but it was also really instructive about the kinds of music that I wanted to make, and that you didn't have to sacrifice message over, quality, or, or what people wanted to listen to. And so that has been my template, and something that has felt like so close to my soul, and been easy for me as a writer to just be super, like, hyper vulnerable in my writing. And but yeah, I think it's been enough time where I've been like, "That is nuts." Like, it really is nuts that that happened. And there was a sense of like, I don't belong here. Like, I haven't hustled,
The
or I
imposter
shouldn't.
syndrome?
Yeah, but I also, like, I now, like, as a 36-year-old and having been in the industry and being independent for as long as I have now, I'm like, "Yeah, I that was crazy that I just stumbled into it," you know?
Yeah.
But I started as a spoken word artist, and that's how, Macklemore and I met each other, was through, spoken word being so, closely tied to the hip hop community. And I was talking a lot in my work about being a Christian and being gay. And that's why I was the perfect person for that job, you know? And so that's why I've continued to talk about all of the things that are close to me because my identity is like intrinsic to the art I make, and that's important to me.
That was gonna be my next question is, did you feel the response from Same Love, did that feel like a green light to then start weaving activism into what you do?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, also being on tour with Ben with Macklemore was like also a great like exposure to somebody successful talking about their struggles or their, relationship to these social issues um and so, he's been somebody that I continually like look up to in terms of his like social activism and not, sacrificing message over consumerism.
And staying true to exactly who you are.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think it's so easy to get caught up in others' expectations of you, prep pressures, society.
Totally.
But I think, I'm trying to stop saying I think, I'm working on it. I feel people connect deeply with folks who are so real and true to who they are. That's what people are gravitating towards is that authenticity.
Totally. Well, and that's what the struggle of being an artist, especially now, is it's so hard to take that voice out of your head that is going, well, people like this.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad voice to have, but it can't consume your creative process because you lose sight of what makes creation so special. And that it's because it directly challenges capitalism and consumerism because it is so like, it is so anti that. It is so much about, like, you know, create imagination and
Yeah.
curiosity and all of those things, and I have to remember when I'm creating that this is my healing practice. We were just talking about, like, healing modalities, and that is been my through line of how I process things. Like, I lost a really dear friend, Andrea Gibson, in July, and I was just in such a grief hole for a couple weeks, and I was just crying one night, and I was like, it's just so I can't it's like I can't move through this, and I don't know why, and then it just hit me. I was like, "I haven't sat at my piano, like, I haven't sat with my guitar or sung through this." And I just sat down and I cried for hours just with my guitar and singing, and that is the way that I heal myself. It's been my modality since I was 6 years old. I don't think I would be as well adjusted if I hadn't had a creative outlet. I think it's a really legitimate form of healing that I think people don't feel that they have access to or they don't have permission to do it because we're so scared of not being perfect, and so I think you know that's been my MO for as long as I can remember is like, you don't have to be perfect to create. You don't have to do it a way that everybody else does. I started playing piano and writing songs because I would sit down to like read sheet music and I'd be like, this is boring and it's hard and I want to do it and I want to sound good right now. And so I did. And so I just like, or like singing other people's songs. I didn't feel like I could sing the way other people did, so I started writing my own songs and singing the way that I wanted to, and, like, now I've turned into a singer, but I didn't identify that way for a really long time.
Art is pure expression.
Yeah.
Art is creative expression. There's something to be said of just writing something down, doodling, painting, anything that you can do with your hands, piano, whatever it is you expressing yourself. And I think that's a beautiful thing when you're able to remove the perfection or the rigidity behind it. We had an artist on who was raised as a classical musician. It was
Mm,
very rigid.
yeah.
And she wanted to color outside those lines and create her own fusion of classical music. You have to give yourself permission to do that, though.
100%. But I think we're touching on something that I think has changed with social media and with
Yep.
the way that we relate to it is as soon as I get an idea or I'm sitting at the piano, I'm like, oh, I need to film. I need to, the content, like I need to make sure I capture like every part of this. And when I was writing songs when I was 12, like I didn't do that, I sat with it. So I've been trying to like, okay, maybe I do put the camera on or something, but I put it far away or maybe I just wait a while until I've had like the soul connection that I need to go through this and to process this. The I think the best part of being a singer-songwriter is the duality of the insular creation and the self-healing, and then going out into the world and sharing and the invitation for other people. But I think you have to have both in order to feel good because
Yeah, it's
it
a dance.
yeah.
And I think where it gets sticky too is when you have, okay, let me get the phone out. Let me play 40 seconds of a song I just wrote. Let me post it and see if people even like it.
Yeah.
If they don't like it, I'm not finishing it. If they
Yeah.
like it, I'll finish it and put it out.
Whoa.
There's that you've now placed that judgment in the hands of other people. You've now let other people dictate your creative expression. I think that's where you have to decide what you're doing it for. Maybe in that moment you do need to write a hit for the sake of contracts and whatever other complicated things are out there? Or was that moment just for you to experience that pure joy of creating? That's the dance that I think happens a lot in this industry.
100%.
Now, Mary, your creative expression, you self produced The Tempest,
I
your
did.
latest song.
Yes.
What were you able to say by producing your own track? Which I heard you say it was out of economic reasons, which I think is totally fair and very much admire your vulnerability there. What were you able to say differently driving that seat in production?
Mm. Yeah, because I produced my whole last record too, and that process is really liberating, I think especially as, like, a woman and having been in this industry for a long time, that it feels like you can only create something legitimately if a straight white guy is like, a cis straight white guy is sitting behind the producer's chair and legitimizing it and being like, "Okay, now you've been recorded and now you're through the proper lens that you need to be." And to be able to, like, challenge that in my own way, using my own voice and my own ear and trusting that. I think it's the self-trust because
Yeah,
when I've been sorry.
you're good.
When I've been in the studio, it's like I don't care how kind and easygoing and like a feminist the producer is. As soon as there's another voice in the room, especially if it's like a man's voice, it just does something. There's a performance that starts to come in of like, I need to be a certain way. And it's nobody's fault. It's just like, that's how it is culturally. And I think there's something to be said for those spaces where you can really feel free. Like I was just thinking about this. Do you know that film Woman on Fire? Is that Portrait of a Lady on Fire?
I haven't seen it.
It's
I've heard of
so
it though.
good. But the whole crew, the whole um energy around it was so woman centered and I don't think specifically cis women because I'm very anti that but like just a space where you're not thinking about the performance or the male gaze because
Right.
it's just like that's a real thing. And it's not to say that there's not a place where we can't, like, it shouldn't be that way, like I wish it didn't feel that way. But I guess just for myself, the time to be solely in my own creative
Your
space.
bubble.
Yeah, where I can turn over every stone, where I'm like, I want to listen to 500 different snare sounds and I want to find the right one. And I'm not going to be able to find the right one if I'm thinking through the
Mm.
lens of somebody else. And I need the time and the space to do that because it does take a lot of time. So I think for me, it was about learning how to train my ear and giving myself like the latitude and space and forgiveness to try a bunch of different things and then with the engineering aspect of like, okay, what does this reverb sound like? How
Yeah.
can I EQ this to a way that sounds good to my ear? And it's not to say I didn't like send it out to get like, have, different sounding boards in my life. And obviously men are part of that. But like in the actual like gestation, like genesis
It's you.
creation of it, if I think it's really important to trust your own instinct and voice. This was the first song I've ever released where I listened to it and I'm like, I could not have done that any better or more truer to myself. And that just feels really good.
Yeah.
When I listen to some of my past work, I'm like, oh, that's good. To me, I see it as a collaboration. It's a collaboration of a producer or, that person in the studio at that time. This was me in my home studio for I spent like 3 years on this song because I just wanted it to be me, and I needed time to do that. I don't think that that's gonna be right for everybody, or like, I definitely don't need to do that for the rest of the album, but just with production the way it was or what I wanted to say needed to be that intense, I guess.
I also just had a light bulb go off. It's interesting it took you 3 years for that song, which had to be such a freeing, empowering process of giving yourself that space and time. But it's also a song about freedom.
Yeah.
There's a parallel there that I find super interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that I, like, went through a divorce during that time because the song ended up changing shape, and I recorded different vocals at different times, and I remember just being like, "This is representative of many different things to me now," and feeling like I am my own independent person, and I wanna say this in this specific way, and I wanna scream right here.
Yeah. And you've
And
evolved over those 3
yes,
years.
exactly. Yeah,
What you've had to say has probably evolved over those 3 years.
100%. And what's so funny with the song too is like I initially wrote it for like a soccer, like the Seattle Sounders, this is our soccer team, like halftime
Oh,
show.
wow.
And I wanted to write like a sports song because I'm like, want that
That
Macklemore can't
oomph.
hold us money. Like that's what I wanted.
She's ready for a check.
I know. It was just like that. I gotta make the sports song. And I know I don't look like it, but I'm like a sports lesbian. I'm like, I'm like big time like sports person. And I wanted to like make this sports song. So I like found some like, drum line sounds. And I was like, I'm gonna sit with this and I'm gonna make the best sports song. And, the first week I'm like, we're gonna hit the ball, we're gonna punch the wall, because I just realized that all of this genre is very aggressive and they're just mad about something. And I was just like, we're gonna get the goal. And I don't know, just sitting with it, I was embarrassed. It's like, this is contrived, this isn't me. What makes me mad? And then I was
That's what
like,
I was just gonna
oh,
say, were you were channeling what made you aggressive in that.
yes, 100%. And I was like, oh, mad at I'm mad at the anybody that tells somebody else what to do with their body. Like I am mad about Roe v. Wade being overturned and people criminalizing abortion and like the like elimination of like, you know,
Human rights?
yes, and like trans people being vilified for what like their relationship to themselves and their body. Like, go fuck yourself. Are you serious? You're gonna and like for a political party and a culture and a belief system of conservatism that is so about like smaller government and
Free speech?
don't overreach, and it's like and you're like you're so obsessed with people's genitals and you're weird. You're the weird one. Like leave people alone. It's bizarre to me.
100%. Agreed.
Anyway,
Plus
so
plus
you can
one.
I
The
get
anger,
worked
she's
up.
locking in. She's
I
gonna
know.
I'm with you. We're also I mean, we're recording this the morning after, Kimmel has been pulled off the air, which is a whole other can of worms that I'll refrain from going into right now, but there's a lot of anger there, and frustration and fear. Yeah, it's just a lot, and I'm grateful for your song because I do think that it's an anthem of fuck you. And I own my body.
Yeah.
Another great artist who writes that type of music, I'm thinking of Milk, Milck.
Do you know Connie comes up in so many
Do you guys know
conversations?
each other?
Yes, I literally texted her. I was like, we need to talk."
I'd love to have her on the show too. I mean, I just think similarly, like you guys are in the same vein. You should write together.
Yes, I know. We met at, like, a really witchy, like, time where we ended up, like, being in candlelight with a bunch of, like, other artists, like, improvising together and talking about, like, our soul
It's
feelings, like, the
vibey.
first night we met, and it was just, like and that was the first and last time we've seen each
Wow.
other.
Yeah, her anthem was around, I think the Women's March was her
Yeah.
song, but very like the battle cry.
Yes.
I love it and I think it's incredible and I think it's needed and I thank you for your vulnerability and being that voice. I know you mentioned I saw an article that, this is a song you wish you had when you were
Mhm.
younger. Is there anything looking back that you would say to your younger self beyond song?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing with this song and for where I am in this next chapter is being able to embrace all aspects of my emotions and that like anger is an okay emotion to have. My only example of anger is like a really violent, like toxic masculinity. And I actually don't like I'm not going to channel my anger the same way. I'm not a yeller, but like I am upset and angry about things. And I feel like as a woman, you are really like socialized early on to channel that into crying. That it was like, I don't give my time to be angry. I just immediately cry. And what would it feel like to sit in the anger of it? Because I think it can be really galvanizing and you can really like demand more for yourself or say like this is unacceptable or these are where my boundaries are or whatever it is and I wish that I had allowed myself to be more comfortable expressing anger or not see it as like a representation or extension of toxic masculinity, that there was space in like my womanhood to express it.
That it isn't an emotion you can access.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the movie Inside Out as you're talking,
Yeah,
like all the little
totally.
emotions.
Because, I mean, the times where I was angry, it felt so uncontrolled. You know that sort of shaky thing when you get really
Mhm.
hot and you're just like, "I don't know," and you lose, like, your
Words, yeah.
articulation and you're just like, "But bad, and you're bad." I think it's good to, like, work through that, and I think, my sister who lives in Japan, she's trying to get comfortable with anger herself, and she's like, "I've just been going on Facebook groups for people who really are interested in debate and having my beliefs challenged and working through that and the anger and frustration of that and how to articulate my feelings through that and get to a logical place or a place where I can engage in dialogue again, and I think it's important exercise to do.
Power to her, because
Yeah.
that's a slippery slope.
I know.
I get so angry going on Facebook, especially in the past, like, week or 2. The boomer perspective is killing me.
But I mean, I think we're also at a place where it's like, how many of these people are real? And how much
Yes.
of this is like for me to feel exhausted? And I think you have to have a balance and I don't know, and how do you know that the people you're arguing with are real?
It's funny,
Because
my partner said the exact same thing. He was like, "There's bots, and now they have, like, anonymous member 213 in the chat." Like, it social media has changed so much, as you know, but it's
yeah.
just yeah, I think I've had to limit my time on a lot of these platforms just for self-preservation purposes and still staying informed, but while also protecting my peace and finding ways to advocate that is meaningful to me, and I think a lot of that is having face-to-face conversations or going out in the community, and, I just went canvassing last weekend and tried to
Sick.
get back into that, and I think having those difficult conversations in real life is also just as important because the online debates will continue far and wide. We don't know if they're real. We don't know if they're legit. We don't even know if the person behind the screen is 18. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, bots, it's just a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And I think the face to face allows you to cut through that and be like, I'm a human and you're a human.
I think I go back and forth. Do you remember like the feeling of, I don't know, being on Facebook and just like having a friends your friends list of people from high school that you're like, "I just vehemently disagree with you." And it's not even about disagreement, especially when someone's disagreement is rooted in their, like, invalidation
Mhm.
of your existence or, like, who your identity as a person. Like, I understand, like, culling that friends list to be like, "You actually I don't wanna give you any space in my
Yeah,
life because it is, like, damaging to me." I think if especially as white people, like, I think it does come from a place of privilege to just be like, "I'm gonna not mess with
absolutely.
this, and because you're racist and I don't wanna deal with that." I think I go back and forth in my head
Me
of like,
too.
was that a good idea? Because I lost an opportunity to influence or an opportunity to
Engage.
be yeah, to be in to have those conversations with now with people that I know are real,
Yeah.
you know?
I go it's Yeah, let's talk about it. I felt like, I think from 2016 to up until maybe, let's say, 2020, I felt like I'm not gonna unfriend or block people or remove people from my digital space because I don't wanna live in an echo chamber. I want to see the other side. I want to know what other people are saying, because I also believe in different perspectives. 2016 was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different damn time. Today, I don't feel the same way. I see differing views elsewhere. I watch a lot of, like, those debates on TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
I like seeing that. It allows me to sit in, someone else's shoes for a second, even though I vehemently, whatever the word is, disagree.
Yeah.
I very much disagree, but I need to hear it, because I don't think we can live in a world where we're siloed off. Uh, and that's why I think it's a balance of protecting your peace, of engaging, of finding out what's real. But then again, like in the past week or two, I have unfriended a few people.
We're not even in the same world. Like, we're having 2 totally different experiences and, like, relationships to the world, and I'm like, I don't know how you get there, and I don't know how to even have a
Yeah.
conversation.
I would encourage you and everyone listening. Obama was at some event this week, talking, and I wish he would talk more. But he said some, regardless of your opinion of him, I think he brought some hope maybe into the conversation. And one of the things he said is bad things happen when we start devaluing humans as people. When we humans look at other humans as less than or bad and we villainize them. And he applies that to what's happening overseas, what's happening at home. And I think that broad of a message really lands. We need to stop that, especially in America where, like, we're built on our freedoms and the fact that everyone can belong here. Um, I think it comes back to we can't exist thinking that there's a hierarchy of human.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so I'll end that chapter of the convo there, but I know we could talk for
Yeah.
hours about
Well, I
that.
mean, but that's like that's the surface. So that's like part of the disconnect
Yeah,
is like what's actually underneath like the American ideal and like
the
who is
systems
it built off of? Who's been exploited in in that perception? Like
and who are the figures that are unwiring it? And unfortunately, I can only name a few on my hand, at least in the political sphere. I know
Mhm.
there's incredible grassroots community activists that are on the ground fighting the good friggin' fight.
Yeah.
And thank God for those people.
Yeah.
And we all should find different ways to join them in whatever cause that you really ride or die for. Because that, I believe, can change the world.
Yeah.
Resistance and protest and
100%. I think as soon as you get into a place where you're like scrolling and you get to a hopelessness place, or it's just as soon as you open, you're like, nope, I'm hopeless again.
do something about
You
it.
gotta stop.
Yep.
Like you can't sit there
You
and live
can't
there.
rabbit hole, you can't spiral, and that, I think that goes across the board, even, like, doom scrolling and things like that. Like, you gotta take power into your own hands. This
Hmm.
is your life. Last week I was like, "Can everyone just go touch grass and take a deep breath?"
Yeah.
Because the internet is loud and scary, and the world is loud and scary.
Yeah.
So, a question for you is, like, what do you do to ground yourself?
Mm. Well, I think it's about being intentional when I am online of like, okay, now is the time where I'm going to create or I'm going to be really intentional with like what I'm showing to the world. Is that my show? Is that like a song? Is that, some political speech I want to make?
Yeah.
And then do I want to go on Instagram to see what's happening in Palestine? Do I want to go on Instagram to see what's happening with ICE and to be informed because I'm not getting that from like the news sources that I would hope.
You're going
So,
in with a directive.
yeah, so being intentional about that time, giving myself like a time limit or like okay, that somatic awareness of like I'm getting to a place where I'm feeling hopeless or that there's nothing I can do or or I feel on the other end like so responsible that I feel like hopeless,
Yeah.
whatever it is, that returning to my own sphere of like, what can I do in my corner of the world that makes things a little bit better? And I think we talk a lot about organizing and being in community, but I don't know that we know how to do it. And I think that comes from like listening and really seeking out organizers in your area or just like going online to be like, what is my city council doing?
Mhm. On a
Can I
local level,
be,
yeah.
yeah, can I be a part of something happening locally? Because it's not, you're not gonna save it. You can't
You're one
save it.
person.
Yeah,
You're one person.
but you can be a voice of reason. You can have, you can inform people. You can be, constant in certain, you know, respects of like, this is what kindness means to me, or
Yeah.
like, this is what is happening, or this is what I won't stand for. All of those things like matter. And I think as soon as we become disempowered to our own
Voice.
yeah, or feel that we don't owe each other anything. I think that's
Empathy.
yeah, I think that's sad. Like
Yeah.
I think that's a bummer. I think that's a mechanism and a tool of like oppressive forces that tell us that you don't have a voice or you don't collectively matter. Like you can't work together to achieve something. And I think it's just like, okay, what can we put aside to really work together for like a common goal? And I don't know that we're there yet, but I think it does come from like just take a minute. You don't have to respond about every single thing that happens. Like who are your people that look up to in your community or who can you start engaging with in your community to make like a difference?
Yeah, I believe that that response is really crucial. Figuring out who and what to respond to is critical. Mary, I want to close on a question in looking ahead and in your next chapter and state of the world. What is giving you hope right now?
I think creative people give me hope, artists give me hope, balance gives me hope. I've been like gardening a lot
Oh, I love
and I just I planted like 40 feet of corn.
that.
Like I don't know like getting back to a more like intuitive place of myself and the earth is like the starting place. And that makes me feel like, okay, this is real. like like reality gives me hope. So let me stay rooted and grounded in the things that give me hope.
Yes.
And then community and friendship and then like the greater sphere of things like that like but starting with my relationship to the earth and then my personal relationships and then my music, like all of these things, as long as my
Orbit.
internal
Yeah.
sphere is like good, then that gives me so much more buoyancy to deal with the outside forces that are like harming the community that I like am a part of and love. And that allows me to be more present in it and to be, more active and care and to show up in ways that I like expect of myself. But yeah, I think it starts there.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful note to end on. Mary, thank you for being here. Y'all, new music is on the way from Mary Lambert. The Tempest is out now. Go stream. But we have to do part two because I think
Yes,
there's so much we could talk about. But I
100%.
appreciate your time today. And that's a wrap, y'all, more or less.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my dear.